Is this the first time you've done this?
No, I did it. We did one with Lee, so we should be live. So if people can comment and let us know. But I did one. I did one with Lee a little while ago.
So are
Um,
we live now?
believe so.
Are we going to say good afternoon to everybody, Jake?
Yeah, we best had to.
That'd be quite nice, wouldn't it? So if you are live, good afternoon, everybody. I'm in my local tackle shop. And, okay, see you later. So there will be people coming in and out. And you never know, they might get some other questions from people that actually come into the shop.
Yeah, I think that'd
So
be
anyway,
nice.
good afternoon. Welcome to the live Sonubaits Q&A, which
Yeah.
I know a lot of you have been asking for, Preston and Sonu. But this is the Sonu one. I'm sure we'll be doing... I'll probably get Zot to try and do a live Preston one, whether he can actually handle it.
Well,
Like all the technology, I don't know.
I know that Adam has been asking me how I go about doing it. It's changed because we've moved, haven't we? We used to do it through Zoom, and now we're doing it through Teams, so it's a little bit different. So I'm pretty certain.
I didn't actually set this up.
For some,
Zoe set this up. Who owns the shop? Otherwise, we would not be doing this live, guaranteed. So
No.
there you go.
yeah.
So anyway, welcome to the first of the Sonubaits Q&A from me. If there's any questions about anything, obviously bait and fishing, preferably nothing else. Am I looking? I've got to look at the camera at the top, haven't I?
Yeah, well, you can look wherever, but you are quite bright, which isn't the worst thing. But you're
Well, let me
quite.
tell you something, Jake. I don't normally wear a hat inside, but if I took this off, it would be a lot brighter.
Yeah, off your
'Cause
head.
it looks
Yeah,
like I've had a headlight. Yeah, that's why I've got a hat on.
fair enough. Fair enough. Right. Well, we've been getting plenty of questions in whilst we've been waiting because I sort of scheduled it, so people knew we were coming on.
Yeah.
So
Well, that's good news.
yeah, so the first thing, obviously I saw it and thought it looked great, but yesterday you spent your day on the River Wye, which looked fantastic. AJ Richards has said, was there a video involved, or was it all product testing? What was the purpose? But tell us a little bit about the fishing yesterday while you were on the Wye.
Yeah, basically, obviously, we all know by now, I think, that Hereford, all the fish come into the town stretch in Hereford. And honestly, I mean, I probably missed it when I went there with Zolt, sort of the best fishing, if you like. But this year, I think we've come probably as they're all moving into the town. The main purpose yesterday was obviously field testing, some floats, some rods, etc., because Preston is a brand, same as Sonubaits, they cover all different options, whether it's commercial, natural venues, and obviously we need to make sure that whatever we do, we put as much time and effort in to try and get the product dead right. Whether you're going on a normal river, fishing like a pound and a half bottom, or whether you're going to the Wye, where you're fishing probably like 0.14 3-pound bottoms, because the fishing is that good. So trying to build a rod to cope with both isn't easy. And we, going out yesterday, actually one of the rods was absolutely perfect for the situation. The other one wasn't. Unless you go to somewhere where you're actually catching fish, you can't test stuff. So it's really important. And we spend a lot of time as a company and as a group of people going out testing everything. Yep. That's the whole point of it. And but anyway, the fishing was very, very interesting. I took
a bucket load of ground.
Well, I had some soil in it as well, Jake. But I took a lot of the half bags. I've had some black roach, I've had some deep water, some sweet skimmers, some fatchers, everything that I've probably had tucked in, which the mice are probably trying to eat in my garage. I've taken it, mixed it up, took it with me, put a load of soil with it. So it wasn't all just ground bait. It was probably 50% soil.
Yeah.
But amazingly, we started off on a bollow float, and it was probably about 6 foot deep, 7 foot deep where I fished. And unless you literally chucked a rock hard ball of ground bait in with some hempen casters in, the dace and whatever other fish were there were literally, as to chuck the ball in, they must have literally been attacking the ball and following it down to the bottom. There is nothing short, past it, downstream from it, unless you had a bite within. It's amazing. And when they're catching these massive weights of dace and roach, I presume when they are chucking balls of ground bait, it's exactly the same.
Yeah.
And that's why they probably fish a whip, because they're literally, dropping the rig on the ball. If you don't get a bite within 1.5 meters, 2 meters down, lifting it back up again. Where with a crow quill, bollow, stick float, you've got to wind it in.
Yeah.
You're wasting time.
Yeah.
Casting it out. But yeah, it was a great day. I actually stayed there until it was dark.
Which I've known that to be the case with you. You do love it.
Was like, Des, I'll see you later, mate. I've got to get home and have my tea.
Yeah.
I said, see you later, Adam. And I stayed there until it was dark. I literally I packed up at I don't know what time it was, but I was on the road and it was pitch black.
Yeah.
And I caught some great big. I started fishing a small stick float, literally off the end, and it was gin clear, and the stamp of roach is incredible. It wasn't solid. I mean, I say it wasn't solid. I'll probably end up with somewhere near £50, which on a river,
on a river is ridiculous.
Which is amazing.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like how it probably could be. If it had a tinge of colour in it, God knows what it would be like. But yeah, really, really productive day, and that's being a consultant. That's what you do. You go out and make sure when you buy the stuff in the shops, it's what it is. Yeah,
and that was the mix you used. I know it was lots of half bags, but black roach and deep water, is that your sort of go-to for that style of fishing?
Yeah, 100%. The soil just gives it that weight.
Yeah.
And what I done, I actually went and got some. I used mostly black roach with like you said, Jake, with deep water. And it wasn't quite right. I put some soil with it, some molehill, and I actually got up off my box and went to the field behind me, and I got some molehill. I didn't even put it through a riddle. Yeah, there were stones and all in it, and that literally made it like plasticine.
Yeah.
So if you put all the hemp in it, all your casters, like literally squeeze it. That's the art of it, I think. You squeeze it like 2 times, and it is like plasticine.
Yeah.
And you chuck it in, nothing comes off of it. And you try and force the bleak down. The amazing thing was, we were like field testing several different floats yesterday, and I said to Adam, it's time to change. We've had to go on the bollow, we've had to go on the stick float, still a bit of wag fishing. And I started firing maggots out on the wag line, and you couldn't catch. Crazy.
So they're so tuned into ground bait, and
they are so tuned into a noise and following that down. And I actually spoke to a good friend of mine on the way home who fishes it all the time, Andy Neal, and he said, Des, I was there last year or the year before, and he was down below the stretch I was on, and he was fishing in 2.5, 3 foot of water, and he said he was throwing in maggots and ground bait, and the dace were literally boiling on the top. And when I mean dace, I mean they're that big. They're not like little things. And he said he couldn't catch them. He said the only way you could catch them was chuck a ball of rock hard ground bait in 3 foot of water and fished on, in it. Yeah,
which sounds wrong for that sort of depth of water, doesn't it?
It's unbelievable.
Yeah,
absolutely mental. And he said, other times he's been there, you can loose feed maggots. They're like bleak in the maggots. You can catch them on like a little strung out rig and get one every chuck. And he said other days they'll be topping over your float and you can't catch them shallow. Yeah. You just think, what's that all about? But that's fishing, isn't it? That's what we go fishing for. And I have got an opportunity to go back this Sunday and actually fish the Winter League there, but I'm not sure whether I can handle it. If I go and draw, there's 2 sections. I think it's A section and B section. And now it's gone freezing cold. There'll be some dry nets, which is what it is. You're just hoping to draw on the epicenter in the town. And there's people yesterday just pleasure fishing. There's people that basically come down from all over the country, spend 2 or 3 days in Hereford just to go and fish and try and catch some of the roach, Jake. Oh, mate. Yeah,
incredible.
Scary, absolutely scary. Yeah, absolutely. And they're like proper roach, big humpbacks, big fat things. When you lift your net out at the end, you're like, Jesus Christ, no wonder they catch these 60, 70, 80 pound bags there.
And it's because you're fishing like how you were with like bollows or sticks and that, and you probably, you get away with swinging fish that usually if you were fishing a pole you'd be netting every one, so you're like so you don't realise, do you?
No, you don't. You're fishing like I said, I fished 5 or 6 pound main lines yesterday on a stick floating bollow, and normally you'd be fishing 3 pound on most rivers. But you're fishing 5 or 6 pound there because they're wear and tear. Durability. And obviously the durability. And the hook lengths are like, I said, 3 pound hook lengths. Yeah. Maybe even 4 pound. 14 hooks, 16 hooks.
Yeah, proper,
4 maggots. I did catch on single caster. It was beautiful. in the end, I just couldn't pack up.
Yeah.
It was beautiful, honestly, catching those great big clonking roach literally down the inside.
Yeah, off the rod.
Off the end of the rod, off of a 14-foot rod.
Yeah. Absolutely
beautiful fishing. That's the only way I can say about it. It was beautiful fishing, to be honest.
Excellent. Yeah. Well, sounds great.
I should have been there with you today, Jake. That's what I should have been.
Yeah, I had a meeting this morning. We thought, when you called me last night, I was thinking, should we just go back there and just do it all over again? But yeah, I had a meeting this morning, so we thought next best thing.
We can go back there next week, Jake. It's not
yeah,
a problem.
Exactly. We'll do that. Right, let's move on to some questions because we're getting quite a few through, which is quite nice. So, Sam has asked, when fishing the method in winter, how long do you leave it before chucking back out? Also the same with bomb and bread, like that sort of thing. So like timing casts, what's your sort of go-to? Let's say like your first cast, how long are you leaving your first cast? And then what's your sort of decision-making process after that point? Yeah.
All right, Sam. Yeah, good question, actually. It depends on the venue. So say, for instance, I was going to a heavily stocked water, and I mean somewhere like, say for instance, like Todburn Manor. And we all know that is an exceptional fishery. It's absolutely stuffed with carp. I think even when I was going there in the winter time, the maximum you would leave it would be 4 minutes, 5 minutes. At the start, I would say 3 minutes, because you are trying to get a little bit of bait in. And also, Sam, it depends on the colour of the water as well. I find if the water's dirty, you can actually cast more often, because obviously the water's dirty because the fish are probably active, they're stirring at the bottom, they're keeping the colour in the water, or you've had a lot of rainwater. Sometimes you can't leave it out. Personally, for me in the winter, I would say between 7 and 15 minutes would be the optional time scale. When I fish shearwater, unfortunately shearwater is shut at the moment. They've got this blue-green algae, but it's opening back up. But last year I fished a winter league there, and it's it's incredible that it doesn't matter how hard it fishes. You can be on a few fish. You might on some areas you might be only fishing for 2 or 3 bites all day, and they're bream and carp, mostly bream. The bites come between 7 and 13 minutes. It's like you could chuck out, you could go and have a coffee, 6 minutes.
Yeah, and
come back with like a minute to go. And the amazing thing, Sam, is I spoke about it several times in fishing. It doesn't matter if you're fishing with a method or a cage feeder. The weird thing about feeder fishing during the winter as well as summer, and winter mostly, is when you cast out and you get a bite really quickly, like say a minute, 2 minutes, it's sometimes even a bit quicker. And you think, oh yeah, I'll cast out every 2 minutes. It don't work. It's like you've got to leave it there for a certain amount of time before you wind back in and cast again. Because if you keep casting too often, that doesn't work either.
Yeah.
It's like that time scale of leaving it, letting the peg settle, and then the weird thing is you can cast back out and you literally get a bite immediately.
Yeah.
And that's the little thing that I can never understand in feeder fishing. It's drove me nuts over the years, but it's just one of those things. You can't keep casting too often. You have to have that time scale of, like, I think on most venues, 7 to say 15 minutes.
Yeah.
But there is occasions like Boddington's, even Shearwater, you have to leave it out there half an hour.
Yeah.
It is that sort of fishing. I don't think I've done a film with you, Jake. I think we
did one a long while ago.
Was it white post bread fishing?
Oh no, we did one at Boddington. I was
and even like white post, for example, at Todburn, which is not so solid as it's still solid, but it's not as solid as the main complex.
Yeah.
Every bite come, I think there is a video on the Preston YouTube channel. Every bite comes like 7 minutes.
Yeah.
So that bread had to be like complete, and bear in mind I caught like 150 pound, pleasure fishing, gin clear water.
Yeah.
But every bite comes 7 minutes.
Yeah. Which is the important. Everybody mentions it, but the importance of having that stopwatch isn't necessarily for the fact of having. It's just so that you can just gauge. if you know every bite's coming on 7 minutes, you know to leave
Yeah.
your casts no longer than 8 or 9 minutes, sort of thing.
That's exactly
Like,
right. You just don't waste time.
Yeah, so you're
Yeah.
not wasting the time, and it's
Yeah.
that is generally the thing, isn't it? Places like Boddington, it is where they leave it a lot longer, but you still work out the time frame, whether that time frame's 20 minutes to half an hour or half an hour to 40 minutes, like that. You just work it out by judging when your bites are coming.
It's really weird.
What you said,
weird.
yeah.
Sometimes you want to smash your van up on the way home because you just can't quite, in your brain, you can't quite grasp what you're doing. But the film I done with Zolt, I think it was Zolt. Or no, I done one with you, didn't I? And the difference between another important point, Sam, is the size of the feeder you use.
Yeah.
If you're leaving it longer, even in the winter, you might have to fish with a bigger feeder.
Yeah. Rather
than a tiny one. It just depends on what you think is really important. And I think, especially with the XR feeders, I've done a lot last year at Shearwater. I felt like I learned, and to learn some in feeder fishing nowadays is quite difficult, I think, because there's so much information now, underwater footage, etc. And it was weird that if I used a big feeder, so a big XR, a large XR, it melted off the feeder quicker because I can't compact it in that, I can compact it as hard as I want, but I know it's breaking off.
Yeah, the walls of the feeder are further apart to be able to hold it in, sort of thing.
That's it. And then a small one or medium one, I knew it was on there. And some days, if the fishing was hard, it was actually better to use a medium. I don't think it had anything to do with the bait. It was how it would hang on to the feeder.
Yeah.
And I was convinced that on a hard day, one, I could cast that feeder miles anyway because I'm crap at casting, really. I'm not crap, but I'm not the best in the world. I've been out with Mark Bartley, just makes me look like a fool when I'm casting at distance. But anyway, that's another story. But one, I just felt like when it was hard, I wasn't missing any opportunity of a fish coming into my peg and having all that bait out of the feeder.
Yeah.
I would leave that feeder out probably like 15 minutes, get a bite, right, hook a carp. Bear in mind that carp would be bombing around for, you're probably playing it between 5 and 10 minutes, get it out and the feeder would still have the first layer in it.
Yeah.
But with the big one, no chance.
Yeah.
It'd all be completely cleaned out.
Yeah.
A lot of information there, Sam, to take in, but it's the sort of things that...
There's a lot to it, isn't it? Even it sounds like a simple thing, how long do you leave your feet, but there's so much that comes into play. And what you said before about when you chuck out and you've almost chucked on a mugfish or one that's in your peg, that then shouldn't get it in the winter. In the summer it's different because there's more fish actively moving, but if you chuck and land on a fish in winter, that shouldn't sort of take you away from either an initial plan or that same thinking, should it, where you still need to gauge when's the next fish going to come, even though the first one might have come on a minute or two. You alright?
I'm off here. What's happened there?
You're still there. What's going? Yeah.
I can't see you.
Alright. Yeah, you're
What's
still there.
mean?
It might have just gone onto. Has it just gone onto your screensaver? You might need to get your techie to come in and
join. Is it?
You're already there. You're still there.
Am I?
Yeah, you're alright.
Well, I can't see you, Jake, but if you can see me and everything's fine, everybody just put a thing up saying that yes, I can still see you, Des.
Yeah, we can. I can see you here.
You sure?
Yeah. Take a step back and we'll
hang on, let me just join now. Oh, you still there?
Yeah.
Hang on then. Oh, I don't know what's happening anyway. I'll leave that until my boss gets back. So if everybody can still see me, I'm just looking at a computer screen.
Yeah, no worries. Right, so...
That's not very nice. It just cut you off, and I haven't touched nothing. I'm sorry about that. Anyway, yes, Sam, so I hope that sort of... you get some information about that. But, yeah, I think between 7 and 15 minutes is the prime time during the winter time.
Good stuff. Right, so...
is there people coming on saying they can still see me, Jake?
Yeah, and I can still see. I've got you on my phone. I've got you on 3 different screens. Yeah, you're all right.
3 different screens?
Yeah, because I've got to go on my streaming software, the actual thing, YouTube. So, yeah, we're all right. Right. We'll power through some questions. What ground bait would you recommend for Loddon Lakes? Is that one you're familiar with? In winter?
I know that that's down by Gillingham.
He's thinking
lovely little lake.
He's thinking along the lines of F1 Dark, Thatcher's Dark, Super Sweet, Sweet Skimmer. So what would your go-to or a combination of a couple be for that sort of venue?
Well, there's two ground bait. Well, I think everybody knows by now. Thatcher's Green, dark. Thatcher's Original is my go-to base ground bait for sort of winter fishing. Well, as well as in the summer for anywhere you're going, where you might be catching skimmers, bream, odd silver roach and things like that. But there's one ground bait that I used probably for the last month now. It's called, I've got some here somewhere. It's Super Crush Green. That is a ground bait that a guy I know very, very well used to use this years ago. It was actually called something else years ago, Jake. It was called like koi, wasn't it? Green koi
so
or something?
the pellet that's in there is a green koi pellet. It's 100% a green koi pellet ground up.
And it was called different, wasn't it? It was called something else years ago.
I'm not sure. I don't know whether just in the writing underneath. If you look on like where the orange strap, I think it'll probably say what. Does it say something there? Does that say?
Not really. Just says Super Crush Green.
Yeah.
But anyway, that is something that I've been using. I used it down Whiteacres last week, and I used it down there in the Drennan Festival a couple of weeks before. And if anybody uses Pro Thatcher's ground bait, wherever you use, it doesn't matter what colour, it's not that. What I would say it's not the easiest ground bait to actually mix. Obviously use it a lot. I go fishing a lot, and it's quite easy. And I did actually speak to someone the other day. Paul knew it was, and he said, Des, I love that Thatcher's Green. He said, I catch loads of fish over it, but it's quite hard to mix. I said, Paul, mix a bit of Super Crush Green with it. Yeah. Because it just fluffs everything up. When you're fishing for skimmers and F1s, I mean, last week at Whiteacres, I'm not just saying that, people might just say, Des, you're talking at the backside. I didn't draw particularly great. I drew some real tough areas. Yeah. I got beat 3 days out of the 5 by end pegs. You can't do nothing about it. That stuff, for me, if you look at my nets of fish that I've caught, a lot of skimmers plus F1s. Yeah. And what I could do with that to make it and I fed quite a lot of ground bait, even though the conditions were quite hard. Yeah. And then there's a couple of days I fed 1.5 kilos of ground bait, and the F1s loved it, as well as I caught some big bream on Twin Oaks, and I caught like a load of little skimmers on the match lake. Fish terrible that day. It just northerly wind. That stuff for me. You look at the other nets of people. It made a huge difference.
I've said this for a long time with Super Crush Green. I think that green pellet, bream, and other fish, I just think they absolutely love it. I fish a lake near me where it's all bream fishing, and that's part of my mix for that, because I just think that the bream absolutely love it there, and like big bream skimmers. No, get that one under me out.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is what I'm dealing with.
There's people I have told.
Accordingly. Yeah, all right.
But so it's a brilliant mix, and I saw last week where a lot of people were saying, "Oh, there's not the skimmers and bream in there that there used to be," and I was looking at your nets thinking, "Well, Des is proving that wrong. He's catching a few."
And the amazing thing is how much I could feed. Yeah. I mean, I was feeding 2 big pots of loose ground bait, like every time I fed. Right. And if you didn't put it in, I know it sounds crazy. If you didn't put it in, right, they would not feed properly. It was absolutely crazy. And I've said this in the videos that I've done. Some days, even on the coldest days, depends on the venues you go. Snake lakes aren't so like that, but open water lakes, you'll be amazed some days how much you can put in. Even if you feed like 6 or 8 big potfuls at the start, not top up again, maybe topping up with tiny little balls, and the fish can come over and you catch the quality fish, you catch the bream. Yeah. So give a go. I know we got F1 Dark, and all that sort of mix, but if I was going there at the moment, I know it's gone cold again. Give that a go with your Pro Thatchers. because honestly, it's beautiful. It's absolutely, it's a lovely, fine, fluffy ground bait, which, a lot of fish meal sort of ground baits are quite, quite gooey, aren't they? Sometimes, if you know what I mean, quite claggy. But if you put that in with it takes all that clagginess out, and you can do a lot more with it.
Yeah, and that's the thing.
If you struggle.
Thing with that, like you were saying there, Thatcher's is a mix that, like when it was like the F1 Dark and Thatcher's, a lot of the time we added Thatcher's to help it bind and be a bit more claggy sometimes, didn't we? So by adding that, it
turns the green really green as well, which I love, especially this time of year. It just I mean, but just give that a go, because it's a lovely ground bait, and I think it for me down there last weekend in the Drennan, from where I drew, especially on Jenny's now, you look at my net of fish on Jenny's. Jesus, it was brilliant. I caught loads of skimmers, roach, some F1s. It was, and everybody said, "Jesus Christ, how did you catch all them?" And I was down. A lot of it was down to the ground bait I was using at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So there you go. Try that. Try the Super Crush Green with your Pro Thatchers, or try your Super Crush with your F1, because we all know everybody loves F1. So whether you're fishing natural F1, dark F1, try that Super Crush mixed in with it. I think it'd be a great mix. I've only just started like fishing with it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And it was something that I don't know. I do change.
You love a green mix, don't you? And that's the greenest green mix, because it's 100% that green pellet. So yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So give that a go. I don't know, what's his name, Jake? He never even said who his name was.
Well, it's hard. It's SEAR10 is the name that's coming up. It's Ricky Searle. I know Ricky. I know he's on my Facebook. Right.
If you win the match, I need a report about it, please.
Mark Richmond. Good afternoon, fellows. I would love some tips on pellets for winter chub and barbel preparation, etc. Something I've not done much of. If I was looking in our range, the ones that the majority of people go for is the cheesy garlic range, isn't it? The halibuts. And for chub and barbel, that cheesy garlic is what most people seem to be loving. For barbel, I love like the spicy sausage side. But if I was going to be completely honest, the majority of chub guys and barbel river anglers, they seem to go for. I know the guys on the 7 love cheesy garlic, and that's what they use. And we do them all the way from 3 mil right up to like your 8 mils, and then hook baits right up to 14 mil. But the good thing about them are, like in the bigger sizes, a lot of people will add boiling water onto them so that they can like pack them into a feeder in big sizes. But in the smaller sizes, if you're just using a maggot feeder, sometimes you might want to get some scissors in the holes just to make them a bit bigger. But you can fish smaller pellets in a maggot feeder, fish a 6 or an 8 on the hook, and that's just a nice little pellet approach for chub and barbel, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, when I went on the Y last year, I've not really been on the Y yet. I was using spicy sausage. Just get some of the small 3 mil spicy sausage pellets. You can obviously add a few 4s and 6s in if you like, but I went when it was really cold, and I just got a tin of hemp. I just chucked the whole lot in, the juices of the hemp in a container, added like 50% spicy sausage pellets, the small ones, and it ends up like they break down a little bit, and it ends up like just a nice stinky mix. And you just put some hemp and haddy ground bait with it to get it how you want it, and then just compact that either in a maggot feeder. We were using them Corum, I can't remember what they're called, big like ground bait stroke
like river feeder
maggot feeders. You can take the ends off. Hang on, let me go and get one, Jake. I'll show you.
Funnily enough, if you're looking, I don't make many appearances myself. I tend to keep myself off camera. But there is a video on the Sonu page where I make the exact same mix Des is talking about there, and it literally is a tin of hemp, the same amount of pellets, so literally a handful or a handful and a half of 3 mil pellets, and it's like a handful or 2 of ground bait. You just whack it all in a tub, stir it all together, and it makes just the perfect little like sticky, stinky mix. I think it's called Stinky Barbel Mix.
There they are. They're called a combi feeder. If you go barbel fishing, that's a quite a big feeder. That it's probably 3 to 4 inches big. They obviously come in different weights. And the nice thing about them, if you obviously want a bit of a slower release, you keep them like that. Then this is easy to load them. They're like got a bit of power gum in the middle, so you load them up like that. but you can actually take it all out like that.
Yeah, so it's
Pretty awesome feeders.
Yeah,
they are absolutely bang on for that. Yeah, like they come heavy up to about 120 grams, which is probably what you're going to want on the Y at the minute with the flow. But yeah, you can, like, if you want it loose, like a slower release, just put your mix in there, especially if you're waiting for bites, and then, or just use it as a ground bait feeder by taking the caps out. But bloody brilliant little feeders they are.
Yeah, they're
great. Awesome. And then like if you're using if you want to put some bigger pellets in, like your hook baits, like a robin red or a spicy sausage, take the ends out and put some bigger ones in. If you just even when using maggots, do you know what I mean? They're awesome little feeders. They are.
Look good.
This computer keeps good enough. Anyway, Jake, have you had? Can anybody see?
100% people are saying they can see you. I can still see you on my phone, I'm happy.
I can't see anything.
No.
I'm just looking at your meeting is created. Whatever it is.
Yeah, as long as it's working my end, we'll be all right. Right.
Yeah, but just stick with that. Meat on the hook. Definitely take some punch meat. If you use punch meat, bacon grill, celebrity, something like that, you know, and even when I went on the Y last year, I was actually taking some meat and pushing it through a ground bait riddle. They come out like little. So what you do, if you actually got a meat cutter, well, Coram do those new meat cutters now, don't they?
Yeah.
So push them through one way. So you got like slices. Push that through a little ground bait riddle of whatever you got.
Yeah.
And they come up with little sliver, like maggot-sized slivers of meat. Mix that in around with your pellets and hemp. Well, honestly, I reckon it makes a huge difference, especially when you're catching on meat. If you're getting bitted out, obviously you've got to fish pellets. But meat, when I went on the Y last year, meat was the best bait.
Yeah,
because I think they'd seen a lot of the pellets and stuff, and a lot of the guys go and fish like boilies and things like that.
Yeah.
And it was hard fishing. It was cold, and we put meat on the hook. I think I caught 12 barbel and 5 or 6 chub on it.
Yeah,
and meat was the best. You do miss a few bites on meat, but you know, big air rig, sort of size 10 hook. It was great. It was brilliant.
There's a recent video with me and Rory fishing on the Y, which is basically those tactics, those things. He took meat, caught a few on meat, caught a few on pellets, but the mix is pretty much what we're talking about there. Right, Kelvin has asked, hi Des, so at White Acres last week, what was your best hook bait? Dead reds, live reds? Do you like little bits of wormhead? What do you think is the best skimmer hook bait over ground bait?
Well, good question, Kelvin. It was really, really weird, and you'll find this in fishing. When I went down the Drennan Festival, I drew on Jenny's Lake, and I fished exactly the same. I fished with the same ground bait. The one day I drew on there, I caught 40 some odd pound, a lot of skimmers, and I caught everything. I actually put a little bit of worm in my ground bait because you never know that from one day to the next. And that festival, it was actually milder, and I thought worms are definitely 100% going to work. And we all know if you can catch on worms, it's one, you normally catch better quality. You've got a chance of catching some bigger quality fish like F1s, tench, and things like that. As it happens on the day, worms are a complete waste of time. So that was that was two and a bit weeks ago. Single red maggot was best on the hook, live or dead. Dead for skimmers, and I actually caught some F1s late on live maggots. F1s are strange sometimes. They'll have a dead maggot, and other times you've got to put like double live on.
Yeah, they're funny.
But single dead was the best bait that week. On the Garbarino Festival, I drew on Jenny's Lake again on the first day. It was colder. It was windy, to be fair. The day I caught on maggots, it was flat com. Last week, I'd done the same mix, same ground bait, Thatchers and Super Crush Green. And I put a little bit of worm mix in. I started long on corn, come on me ground bait line with worms, and caught a fish every chuck.
Do you look into the... Like, for example, so last week was the last week before it was going to change and it's now gone cold. Do you look into that and think, like you've caught on worms, do you think fish then are actively looking for that higher protein, like almost anticipating that drop-off in temperature, like ahead of the winter?
I'm not sure, really. I don't know. I think so much to do with the clarity of water. Sometimes worms work better when it's actually clearer.
Yeah, I know we've done a lot in the past where you'll chop like roughly chopped worms and casters, and just pot half a pot of like roughly chopped worms and catch massive roach doing that in gin clear water, haven't you?
Yeah, it's weird. It's proper strange. And then I went on to going back to that Garbellino festival last week, I went on to the match lake the following day, and I thought, I've got to take that information that I've got from Jenny's onto the match lake. Bear in mind, the match lake fish tough.
Yeah.
And the wind went round to the north, I caught 90% of my fish on worms again.
Yeah.
On little heads of worms, feeding ground bait. It was absolutely mental. Honestly, you just think, within a week and a half, those fish will now eat worms, where, when it was milder, you think worms are going to work. And people get confused with that. I think the average person just can't get his head around it. But you've got at least the way I do it, I put a few worms in with my ground bait, try and catch on worms. It's pretty obvious straight away that you're not going to catch on it,
Yeah.
But at least if you put it in your ground bait, like a nice rich mix at the start of worms, a few dead maggots, you can go between the both. But the best bait was maggots on the first week, and heads of worms on the second week. But heads of worms were good for skimmers, odd F1. I didn't actually, obviously I can only tell you what. Oh, hello, Jake. Have I gone off?
No.
I'm actually worried sick. This is all going to go
paranoid, aren't you?
It was weird. I mean, I can only vouch for the lakes that I drew on. But yeah, single maggot was a really good bait.
Yeah.
And then heads of worms for your skimmers. And when you weren't on F1s, when you had to make every fish count on the second week, heads of worms were brilliant.
Yeah, lovely. Right, Michael Woodward. I'll try and answer this one. So he says he's put a laughy face. My sticky pellets turn out wrong. So one thing I would say about sticky pellets. So the way we.
Well, hang on a minute. I just got a customer.
Yeah, go on. I'll sort this one. You have a chat.
You sort that out, and I'll be back in a minute. You all right there, mate?
So sticky pellets. One thing I'd say, they're just behind where Des was just stood. So the process they go through, they have got the sticky ingredient that's on them barely needs any water to activate that. So basically on the bag it says 150 ml of water, which is next to nothing. I bet 150 ml of water would be, here's me mug. I'd say it's up to there in that. And if that's all you add and just stir that through, that'll activate the sticky ingredient. The pellets will go soft on the outside but still crunchy, which means that when it comes to putting them on a method feeder, you can really compact them. And I know Des prefers a sort of a crunchy pellet rather than a softened right through pellet for the method feeder, and it just means that you can compact it onto the method. When it comes to the method feeder entering the water, the fact that it's not fully swollen and it's not fully absorbed water means water can get in and will break those pellets away from the method anyway, and leaving your hook bait exposed. So if you've ever got any issues with sticky pellets, that's the way to do it. Go not too much water, just a little bit to activate the sticky ingredient. It'll soften the pellets through but not turn them to an absolute mush. Right, let's have a few things. I don't know. Sean, to do with chub on a flooded river, I think you heard us earlier. Pellets, meat's a great hook bait. One thing I learned from Rory Jones when we were out with him the other day, and there's also a video at the minute with Harry Pardo on the Sonubaits channel, is that bigger hook baits, when you don't expect it, it's alright. When you don't expect it, so like it's gone cold, but on a flooded river, people like Harry Pardo, who's a very good specialist angler, one of our quorum guys, Rory Jones, who fish sort of match style barbel and chub fishing, often say like a bigger standout hook bait in those flooded conditions, possibly so that because your bait it doesn't roll down the river the same, it's got a bit more anchorage to it, is better. So give that a go if you're struggling. Bigger rather than smaller at this time, like if you're facing a flooded river. Steve,
am I still on?
You're still on for the 12th time.
It just says meeting ended 7 seconds ago.
Oh, hopefully not. No.
Well,
you better
get something to say. I'm still on.
You are. You are. I'm watching us live. Right.
Okay.
So, Stephen, one thing that when you walked off and left me, viewers dipped massively. No, it was all right. Right. Stephen has said, "How would you approach a commercial you have never fished before, bait wise?" So let's go with like what would your go-to baits with? So if you could only take 3 baits to a venue you've never been to before, what would you take with you?
It's a question I get asked a lot because that's what a lot of club anglers do. They go to different venues all over, different in where they live. Ground bait would be a definite at this time of year. Ground bait, 2mm pellets. Obviously, you need some expanders as well because you never know. Expanders can be brilliant whether you're fishing for carp, F1s, and skimmers. Yeah. I would say you have to have a bit more than 3 baits.
Yeah, Jake. You've got to take some maggots, don't you? You've got
to take some maggots. And I'd probably, at the start of a session, don't go. Just put a little bit of bait in. Try and find out from the guy that runs the venue what fish are in there. If there's skimmers in there, then obviously ground bait and micros can work really well. I would probably start on a ground bait. Well, have a ground bait line, and then have a micro line, so a 2mm micro pellet line, because you can go between the ground bait for your skimmers. And then obviously if the skimmers are a bit of a pain or there's lots of little fish in there, then you can fish like 2mm pellets and then
figure
fish
out
expanded.
What's best on the day.
Yeah, and sometimes you can fish just maggots over micros.
Yeah.
Just get the bigger stamp of fish. And then have a throwaway line, just maybe loose feeding maggots off to an angle. Like I've always said it, find a nice depth down the inside, away from the bank a little bit. Just have a throwaway line. Always have that. A venue I go to and I don't know it, whether you got casters or maggots, just have a throwaway line because it's really important. And I think you can learn quite a lot from a throwaway line.
Yeah.
If you drop in there and you're getting absolutely battered by little fish, then you can use that information from what you're doing out long.
Yeah.
But for me, I think having a 2mm soap pellet line, micro line, the nice thing about that is you can fish all sorts of different baits over the top. You can put corn in, bit of meat even. It gives you that option of fishing lots of different baits on the hook.
Yeah.
Especially when you're fishing for carp and stuff.
Yeah, which on a venue that you don't necessarily know means you can quickly work out what's going to be best. Especially
this time of year.
Yeah.
Even when I go to tunnel in the winter, there's a lot of maggot fishing at tunnel. There used to be a lot of pellet fishing. And now there's lots of maggot fishing. It's really weird.
Yeah.
But you never go there without feeding a micro. I mean, the last winter league I fished the other week, I actually caught on maggots over micros.
Yeah.
And not that many people do it anymore.
No.
It seems to be like, I got to fish an expander over micros.
And like maggots over there, pellets over there, and try and keep it as separate as you can. But it doesn't need to be, does it?
No harm in feeding a micro pellet line, and you can fish all sorts of different pellet hook baits over it. So if you go there with that, sort of mindset, ground bait, put a few dead maggots in it for everything that swims, especially skimmers and fish like that, and then have your micro line where you're fishing for like maybe your bonus fish and find out what's in the lake really.
Yeah, excellent.
And then you can work that. If you go on your micro line. You start catching carp, then plumb up somewhere else, and it might give you that confidence. Then, coming short later in the match, put micros in there.
Yeah.
If you go on your micro line, there's like nothing. Obviously, look around you, make sure it might just be time of day that no one's catching nothing. But if micros are like you think that's the score on the day, then possibly feed another line as well and just keep them both ticking over. Little balls of micros as well, when the fishing's good rather than loose.
Yeah, excellent.
Use a ground bait punch.
Yeah.
If you do soak micros, get a bread punch. The Preston ones are like that long, and you can get like a little 8mm pellet out of it.
Yeah.
Absolutely deadly on a lot of venues. Yeah. Absolutely deadly.
Yeah, and then you just sort of monitor it. You're sort of gauging and keeping consistent how much you're feeding every fish or every couple of fish that way, aren't you? So.
Yeah, and a lot of venues you go to, Jake, as we know, is like if you put loose micros in and it's quite deep, you can have all the F1s and fish coming off the bottom. Just change, put one of those little tiny nuggets of 2 mils in, soak 2 mils with a bread punch.
Yeah, right. Well,
at the end of the day, you can get them down.
Yeah. Whilst you're on that topic, somebody has actually asked, which micros do you use or additive to put with micros to make them to either them to be sticky or to make them stickier, so that he can fish his pellet cone and chuck it like a decent distance. He's saying
great question.
40
great
yards
question.
potentially.
Well, the best pellets I find for that, I've even got them on hand, is just your standard Fin Perfects. All right, now you could obviously put some sticky pellets in with that. If you're making a cone, right, you can put sticky pellets in, because there's no doubt about it. If you use them sticky pellets, that's the sticky pellets I use. Krill and squid, I think they smell beautiful, especially when you're fishing for bigger carp. I've never actually used them trying to make a cone, but I reckon if you mix those two together like a 50-50 mix, you wouldn't go far wrong. To be honest, I've never actually tried it. It's not the sort of thing it depends on what lakes you go to now.
Yeah, Andy May's we did a video with Andy May, and he loves a pellet cone. It's one of them methods which is like a great tactic in theory, but when it comes to a match, you tend to opt for a method or a hybrid or banjo type feeder, don't you? But
it's a bit fiddly, isn't it?
Yeah, and like the casting, like he's talking about there, chucking it 40 yards. It's quite hard to lob a pellet cone 40 yards, because you've got the way you've got to cast it to make sure you're not just breaking it off on the cast and leaving it behind you is quite difficult.
Yeah, I think if you put a bit of bait booster in with it as well, because that's like a gluten.
Yeah.
Now, like anything to do with like a gluten, it does actually keep it damp.
Yeah.
Because what you don't want to do is, like I do with my pellets for method feeder fishing, you don't want them completely soaked from like the start of your session. You want to soak them, leave them, but you don't want them to go too spongy, because if they go too spongy, like ground bait, it just doesn't bind together.
Yeah.
Where if they're still it's hard to explain with micros.
I was talking about this before. Like you like a crunchy core so that you can really compact them, don't you?
Yeah, really
Oh, I think we have actually lost him for the first time. I reckon we've actually lost him for the first time, so hopefully he rejoins. But basically what he's saying there, in terms of what I mentioned before about not soaking them for too long so that they go soft right through. Let's see if Des will rejoin, because at the minute he's just frozen on my screen. Yet I am completely fine. Go for a few pictures. So Des is very, very frozen at the minute, and I'm not 100% sure what's going on, but he isn't the most technical when it comes to jumping on things like this, so I apologise for this. Let's see what we can do about getting him back. What am I best doing? Should I call him? Right, in the meantime, let's see what's going on. I did just try calling him, but he did not answer, which is great. Let's see what other questions we've got. Des, I've just taken fishing again after 15 years, mainly fished natural lakes for bream. Wondered what was a good winter ground bait for bream. I generally feed a fish. Alan, I don't think you can go wrong with your standard one of the F1s, whether it's F1 dark, F1 green, F1 original, and then Thatcher's. It's the go-to across the country by the majority of anglers, and I don't think you can go far wrong with that. Let's try and get Des back, because that is who you're here for. Nope. No, he's had an absolute mare, hasn't he? I reckon. Let's see if I can just share. Are you back?
Jacob's cream crackers. Are we back?
I think you're back.
You can't believe it.
Unbelievable, he's back. One of the greatest comebacks. I thought you'd.
I'm coming back onto me stand. I'm coming back to me stand.
I'd tried calling you. I've had to try.
I've got a slight issue actually.
What?
Yeah, but you can't believe it. It's not in the shot. They haven't paid the bill, have they? That's the problem.
The internet went down.
Being out in the sticks.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, so
Right.
now connected.
You're on the hotspot now.
We're on a hotspot.
Right, it's a bit grainy looking, but hopefully that'll. The internet.
Well, that's my skin on a shade this morning. You get that? You get that when you're in your 50s, Jake? Yeah. We on anyway. We on.
They can hear you. The visual isn't the best at the minute, but it's it's better than nothing, because I thought you were gone forever.
Well, never know.
You're not that lucky.
Go back to work now. Ian. Right, Jake. Where were we anyway?
Right.
Before you started domestic.
I was just actually noticing
Right.
Flipping it. Right. We'll give it.
Sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen, but we had a technical issue of the internet gone down in the shop. This is what happens when you're down on the levels.
Unbelievable. Right. I think let's just double check that we
anyway,
are back.
That was. Yeah.
We're on. Right. Let's go again. We're back.
Sorry about that.
Back in business.
Absolutely gutted, because I was well into all that.
What happened? The Wi-Fi went.
Yeah, literally the Wi-Fi's just turned off.
Ah.
BT, if you're watching.
So he wanted you to get back working again. Right. Andrew Pierce.
Make sure you better make anyone out there watching, please just put thumbs up to make sure that we are live.
Yeah, I've got it back up here. Right. So Daniel.
Well, the worst thing you can do is get sacked, Jake. So you know what I mean?
Yeah, this is it. So Daniel has asked, when it comes to wafters or pop-ups, do you think colour or flavour is more important?
Well, I like a bit of both. I think colours for me are, I would say, probably more important than flavourings. But banoffee for me, the problem is with it, Daniel, when you go somewhere like I did last year, like Shearwater, you get into a situation where you put a hook bait on and you catch on it. And some people say to me, "Oh, that's a load of old cobbles that there's, you know, I mean, it don't work." I'm like, well, I'm sorry, but I do a lot of fishing, and like Shearwater was incredible. I literally just used a yellow 8mm wafter, bombarded with banoffee, you know, the liquids. Jake told me what you can do. Put the liquid flavouring over every single bandom now that I own is smothered in the absolute liquid.
Yeah.
Depending on what it's, a banoffee, krill and squid, etc., etc. And once you get confidence with something like that, it's hard to go back.
Yeah.
Like, different colours are definite. Banoffee for me at the moment is probably the bait or the smell that I've just got that much confidence with, to be honest. After, like, you know, some of the hardest sort of feeder fishing and being next to people, and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they ain't quite catching what you're catching, and that sort of throws it for me. Once you've had that, it's bloody hard to like move on from that. Colours are easy. Smells are probably a little bit, but banoffee, krill and squid are my favourite.
Yeah, and to be fair, you've got with banoffee or krill and squid, you've got both sort of ends, haven't you? You've got your sweet banoffee flavour or like your fishy krill and squid. So you've got two options with like that, the flavour side of things, haven't you, with those two?
Yeah, there's a lot of difference there, isn't there? A lot of difference.
Yeah.
You've got like a sort of spicy sort of smell, if you like, and then thank you very much. Good ear, isn't it? See, I like this fishing shop. But they do make a difference, Daniel. There's no doubt about it. I think pink, yellow, white for me on certain venues.
Yeah.
But pink and yellow, I would say, are probably the ones that come out. And I do like the actual ones with the two colours in it.
Yeah.
I actually caught quite a few fish on them.
Yeah. Particularly like the banoffee where it's got the yellow with a brown sort of, I do think that flash of colour in it.
I've got a few of them on in the past and caught some fish out of the blue. And I think, actually, that's quite interesting.
Yeah, the swirlies.
Yeah, but just get into a little system. Don't get too confused with it. Try and stick with a couple of different colours, and then whatever smell. Like Jake said, Jake's done. He came out, that's perfect. Where you've got like a real intense, spicy smell to that sweet banoffee. I think that makes complete sense, to be honest.
Kevin has said, I do a lot of natural water fishing. What ground baits would be best to use on them? I often use match method mixed with Thatchers in the summer and sweet skimmer and F1 dark in the winter.
To be honest, mate, I don't think you're far off there.
No.
To be honest, the only thing I would say is if I was going on natural waters that had more roach in it, then I'd probably add some black roach or deep water into that mix. Depending on how hard it is. At the moment, when I'm sort of going skimmer fishing, like I'm going skimmer fishing on this venue tomorrow down here, Silverfish match, I've got to make a choice tomorrow because it was freezing. It's freezing out there today. I've just been out there watching a guy fishing and it's hard, but there's a few bubbles coming up. There's some skimmers to be caught and they're just getting harder to catch. And he is actually feeding sort of a bit of a natural ground bait.
Yeah.
For me tomorrow, for what I've been to Whiteacres, I'm going to find it very, very difficult to come off a Super Crush green and Pro Thatchers green, but I might just add a little bit of deep water to it just to give it that little bit of like activity.
Yeah.
So if a fish comes in, what you'll find with fish meal ground baits is when you first put it in, you'll see it all pinging and it settles off really quickly.
Yeah.
So if a fish comes over it, it won't actually show. Well, you might see a bubble, but you won't see any like movement.
Yeah.
You can only see that when it's flat calm. Where if you put a bit of natural ground bait in, so like some of our natural ground baits have got coriander in it, hemp. A lot of crushed hemp. Anything comes over that, if you sat there for a while and they come over it, you'll see all that little pinging.
Yeah, it'll almost you'll reactivate, doesn't it? When
it does. It reactivates. It gives you the confidence that is probably what I'll use tomorrow because the water's going clearer. I think having a little bit of natural ground bait in will help. And if I was going on maybe your venue, I would probably by the end of the year probably be putting a lot more, so natural ground bait in than the fish meal side of it.
Yeah.
You know, unless you draw like a bream peg or something like that, which I don't do anyway. So I'd be fishing for a couple of pounds while you're fishing for £20 a bream.
Yeah.
So my drawing ability is not as good as Jake's.
It is.
So go along with that. I think you're sweet skimmer. You can put sweet skimmer in with all mixes. It's a lovely mix. And I'll tell you what's amazing about sweet skimmer. It overpowers everything.
Oh yeah.
It's amazing. That sweet skimmer mix overpowers everything that I use.
Yeah.
You can put half a bag of sweet skimmer in with a whole bag of whatever, and it just stinks of sweet skimmer. It's incredible.
Yeah, you can tell when the person a few pegs away has mixed it up, can't you? As well.
Yeah, really weird. But just go with what I think your mix there is bang on, really. Yeah. But just maybe put some deep water black roach in it as the fishing gets a bit tougher, and also if you want to start catching some roach.
Yeah.
That's the art of a lot of silverfish fishing on commercials really is when do you put that natural ground bait in to catch the roach as well.
Yeah.
Because the roach, in some of the silverfish matches I fish especially, 6 to 8, 10 pound of roach mixed in with your skimmers is win or not win some days.
Yeah. Matt Linforth said afternoon, lads. Right, Matt? Matt's been loving super sweet at the minute. He's been using plenty of it.
It's loads. Yeah, that's gone a bit. That's gone a bit doodally. That
people going for that one at the minute.
Selling really well. That super sweet. That's like a double. That's like a double flavouring of F1, isn't it?
Yeah. So super sweet is essentially it was developed on the back of F1 Dark. It's got double the amount of flavour and it is slightly different. It's like a caramel flavour. But it is essentially a souped up F1 Dark. It goes through the same grinder as like your Thatcher's, so it is a little bit finer. It's just got that little fleck, which I quite like it's got a little red fleck of colour through it.
That, Jake? What does that? That goes through the finest. Right.
Yeah, so the thing is with Super Crush Green, it's like very similar to Super Crush Expander, where it's a fluffy pellet that goes through a grinder, but it blitzes it to fine anyway.
See, Jake knows all this. Look, I don't get involved in that side of it.
We've got
full of knowledge.
Yeah, I just listen to Ian and he's just full of it and he knows everything. Right, everyone's still saying we can still see you, Des, but
it's nice to see you as well, but obviously I couldn't. I was just looking at a computer screen 10-15 minutes ago. So let's somebody there has said, do you use short kits or long kits in winter? Like, do you scale down or do you like certain elastics in certain kits? What do you use there? Bit of both. Like Tunnel Barn, I do try and fish with short kits, especially when fishing over against the islands down the edge, because the F1s, it depends where you go. Like I can only sort of talk about where I've been recently. Whiteacres F1s, they are built like Sherman tanks. You've got to go careful down there because obviously with a short kit, you're adding sections on.
Yeah.
Because the F1s, you think they're carp and they're massive.
Yeah.
They're like some of them are like £6. So fishing with a short kit, especially with 010 bottoms, you're asking for trouble.
You're asking for your elastic to bottom out quicker and potentially put the strain on your hook length, aren't you?
Yeah. Really? With tunnel, a lot of short kit fishing. Just depends on the venues, but I do fish both, and I've actually on the festival I fished at Whiteacres a week, I've had them set up for ages. I've actually got some original F1 kits with number 6 elastic in.
Nice.
I've actually double bushed them.
Yeah.
So I've got like the carp bush in, and I've put a bush inside of that, and I've actually got some number 6 original slip. Honestly, it worked amazing.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. It was like, when you're swinging these little like 4-ounce skimmers.
Yeah.
You weren't out of control.
Yeah.
It was like straight in with a short free in as well. So it was like the same length as it was. I think a short free and a short kit makes it 2.4.
Right.
A little bit confusing with your pole this end because you get a bit muddled up with your long fours and short fours.
Yeah.
But it was bloody brilliant. But yeah, on F1 waters, really, a bit of both.
Excellent.
Short kits and top threes or top twos.
Would Des fish? So Florin has asked, would Des fish pellets exclusively or a mix of ground bait and pellets for winter method feeder fishing? And what would be your go-to for that?
I do start on micros, to be honest, especially when I go into a water with. The only places I don't start on micros is when I go into a mixed fishery. So if I'm catching big bream, going back to sheer water in venues like that. If I was going to somewhere like Boddington's, I'd probably start on micros and obviously bandems, hook bait. But I do like that mixture of both. I think when you go into a bream water stroke carp water, I just have like a 70-30 mix of ground bait and micros, probably 70% micros, and then I'll change that as the match goes on. I would say ground bait, I always have a few micros in during the winter time.
Yeah.
I just make it a little bit ground bait rich. I normally go ground bait rich as the match goes on if the fishing's not great. You know, you can have the easiest day in the winter. We all know if we draw on a pile of carp, you can have the easiest day possible. If you're not, you have that ground bait 100% can bring your peg alive. It can drag all sorts of different fish in your peg, F1s, carp, bream. But that, I think, if for the average guy out there, if you go 50-50, you ain't going to go far wrong.
Yeah.
Personally. And then just add ground bait in if it's tough.
Fair enough. Richard's asked, I think I'll try and answer this one, but do Sonubaits do a mix that is as close as it can be to F1 dark or green and Thatcher's green together? So like a mixture already in a bag. We don't.
No.
Because the reason being...
We might be.
Yeah, there's something on the way next year that we're doing which will be a really, really nice mix. But because of the level of fish meal in Thatcher's, like the Thatcher's original, and also there's an element of cereal ingredients within there as well, which comes from like that original recipe where some of the ingredients were cereal-based mix. So that isn't in because... like where would it fall? For one, the fish meal that goes into Thatcher's is like the highest quality fish meal possible, so you wouldn't be able to get the quantity of that you would need to make that mix into like a 2 kilo bag mix, for example. So in essentially no, but there are some that are very similar in terms of they've got elements of both in match. For example, Match Method Mix Dark has a good element of the dark pellet that's in F1 dark, but then also has some of the fish meal and the coarse pellet and the natural coloured expander that some of the elements of Thatcher's has in it. So there are crossovers, but there isn't something that is essentially getting a bag of F1 dark and a bag of Thatcher's, mixing them together, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's what I've always said. Like, if you use Thatcher, I know a lot of people, like I've always said, if you go to a venue you're not sure, use Pro Thatchers, and then use that as your base mix, then go from there. And that's what I've done for a long time now. The same with Match Method Mix from a method feeder fishing. You know, if you want to add chunky fish in there, you know, some bream feeder, some margin mix, absolutely fine. But use, you know, it just takes a lot of the confusion away. If you use Match Method Mix for your method feeder fishing, add other ground baits in during the winter time. I just normally use it straight out of the bag, and then you can add a bit of Pro Thatchers with it if you want to. Same principle when you go into a venue on the pole, for instance, or a feeder. Use Pro Thatchers as your base mix, and then add like your sweet skimmer, like I've done recently, Super Crush Green. You know, it just stops your confusion. But once you get, it's going back to, like I said, I can't remember his name now, with the bandums and the flavourings. Get yourself into a nice little rhythm of your base mix, and then add it in. I think that takes us so much confusion out of it, really.
And I think that's a really good point. I think if you said to yourself at the start of a year, this is my go-to in the warmer months, say for example Match Method Mix, and in the cooler months when I'm winter silverfish, my base mix is F1 dark, and then you sort of add in a little bit, tweak it from that base mix. So like you said, Match Method Mix, you might go, well, I want to use this, I know I'm catching bigger fish or big carp, so I'll add some chunky fish to give it more potency. And then the same when it comes to the cooler months, F1 dark, well, you might be going somewhere where there's bigger skimmers and breams, so you might want to add a bit more fish meal, so that's where Thatcher's comes in. But it might be that you go, well, I need a weaker mix with some non-fish meal, so that's where some sweet skimmer comes into play. And just rather than sort of going, I'm going to this venue, I'm going to change my mix completely, use what you're confident in and then just tweak it around what you need on that day. I think that's a sensible thing. Steve.
The nice thing about Pro Thatchers for me, Jake, which it always has been, is you can catch roach over it as well. For some weird reason.
That element of cereal mix.
And that's always been from the original Thatchers days, which is always stuck in my mind. I can go to lots of different venues and catch roach over it as well, which is a bit weird, but it works.
Steve Ford has said he's put best drawer I know, but I don't know whether he's talking about you or me there.
Jake, I would 100%. He doesn't know me very well. He knows we're a lot better being in the same team.
Yeah.
I would say he's definitely going down your road there, Jake. And I've seen your results on the Gloucester Canal. NPEG most weeks.
Yeah. Last year, maybe. This year, not so much.
You haven't been going on the Gloucester. You've been chucked out of the team. You're not doing very well.
That was in Portugal when they were on the national. Mark Birdseye, bomb and bread fishing this time of year. What size disc of bread?
8 mils, Mark. Two normally, possibly 3, but 8 mils is the most, I think. Don't forget to put 1 on as well sometimes. I mean, I always put, what I normally do, Mark, is I use the Preston bread punches, obviously. Punch like 3 or 4 out. I put 1 on, which is like literally straight out of the punch. But the second one, I actually squash it. Because the confidence for me, especially when you're fishing a bomb at distance, that gives me the confidence that is on. I have got a massive problem in bombing bread fishing where I think it's come off. And I always get the second disc, so I put the first disc on straight out the punch, like I said, all fluffy and nice. And the second disc, I give it a nice squeeze. And if you're casting a real big distance, use a bigger punch and actually fold it over. So probably what my dad used to do when he was like float fishing years ago. You actually get the disc or you get a bit of bread and you fold it over, give it a squeeze. So it's a bit fluffy around the edges, a bit of a John Wilson sort of.
Yeah, just
bread,
get Europe right through.
That's it. And and obviously I use a quick stop.
Yeah.
But it gives you the confidence that is actually holding the fluffy bit on, and it's staying on for your bite. Yeah. I'm not overly keen on bombing bread because I'm sat there and I think that's come off.
Yeah.
But it doesn't. It's just like you're in your head, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
But definitely. 8 mil normally mark 1 to 3 pieces.
And what hook length? We've had another question there for bomb and bread. Bomb and
normally, I'm quite happy with a foot. To be honest, 15 inches.
Yeah.
I'm quite happy with about a foot. And if you think he's actually floating, I've messed about with that, and I'll tell you now, to get a bit of bread float, it's quite difficult with a size 12 hook on it. I think it's more of a fluttering around just off the bottom. I know some people have gone down to 4-inch hook lengths with bread because they think it's popped up and stuff. I ain't too sure. I've not really done a lot of experimenting with that. I've got a lot of other things going on in my mind without. I'd rather just chuck them out for feeder out, to be honest with you.
Yeah, fair enough.
Or a bomb and pellet. But yeah, I think you can use anywhere between 4 and 15-inch hook lengths if you want, depending. I think most people use 12 to 15 inches personally.
Brilliant. I'm saving up to buy a new pole in the 2.5 to 3 grand region. What pole would you recommend? Yeah, fair play to him.
2.5. Well, it's got to be the 70. The Superior 70 X70.
I think you get quite a bit of change as well for an X70. But I think as far as an all-round, it's a top end pole all-rounder. It's just great. It's what I use. You'd get an X90 for that, but I think get like the X70 and any spares you need with it, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I think X70 you won't go far wrong with that. It's a beautiful pole. Obviously, like I've always said to people, try and. If you are a serious sort of match angler, pleasure fishing, especially when you do a bit of river fishing and natural fishing as well, try and get yourself. It's all about. I think we all know now. We've all learned over the years that if you pick most poles up at 10, 11 meters, no matter whether you're paying £1,000 or £3,000, they all feel amazing. It's not you get out to 13, 14, 16. That's what you pay your money for. That's what you pay your £1,000, £1,500, £2 grand for, is to sit out there. I mean, I use the Superior 90, and I've always said that pole at 14.5 meters is. I go fishing with it some days. I just think it's so bloody nice at 14.5 meters. We all know it's 16. It's a long way in it. But that pole for me, when I've taken people coaching and I've said, look, try my pole. And they're like, okay. And they're like, Christ almighty. And they've bought a pole for like 1,500, 1,800 quid.
Yeah.
That there's a big difference. That's what you pay your money for.
Yeah.
So if you can afford it, and that's what the 70s like 13, 14 and a half, it is bloody amazing. You know, when I always take this story, when we actually got the samples of Superiums, I picked it up and I honestly thought it was the upgrade of the XS90.
Yeah.
And it wasn't. It was the 70. And I'm like, no, I think you got the legs wrong on the butt sections.
It feels
good
it's like a, even though it's part of that range, it feels like a pole in its own right. It's like feels a bit different, doesn't it? It's just it's got lovely action.
Listen, Jake, I could quite easily use a Superior 70.
Yeah.
For all my fishing, but the problem is, being a consultant for Preston, if I use one, people would say, "Oh, well, what's up with the 90?
Yeah.
What's happened?" So, but I could quite easily use a 70. Yes, the 90 is
At
obviously
those
better
longer lengths,
at longer lengths, but I could quite easily use a 70, no problem at all.
Right.
So yeah,
Brilliant. Right.
go for 70 if you can push your budget up to that.
Nice.
Yeah.
Trevor, I've scrolled right to the bottom of the questions, and Trevor informed me I've missed his, so I've scrolled all the way back up, and I have in fact missed a question. I know you favour centrus reels, but a little bit out of my price range. What do you recommend for short to medium range feeder, method feeder, magnitudes?
Oh, Trevor, 100%. The magnitude is virtually very similar to a centrus. It's got the worm drive in it, which I think is an absolute must for a quality reel. So if you're doing lots of feeder fishing with carp, fishing with braid, that sort of magnitude centrus reel. Obviously, with a magnitude, you don't get the double handle. And I know some people don't like double handles. For me personally, a double handle I love when I'm fishing rivers, pellet waggler, stuff like that. You don't really need it for. I don't use them for feeder fishing. If you're fishing with a feeder, medium to short range, definitely get the 420 size. They come with a spare spool. You get the double line clip, etc., etc. The only thing you don't get is, like I said, you don't get the double handle, and I don't think you get the push button spool. But how many? Not being funny. How often do you change the spools of your reels? Really?
Yeah.
You know, it's not as if you're doing it every day. So magnitude all day long.
Yeah.
Save yourself probably 40, 50 quid. And again, going back to like the poles I just spoke about, I could quite easily use magnitudes over centrus.
Yeah, I do.
I do like my double hand.
Yeah, I personally use magnitudes for. Well, I've got three rods there. One's got a extremity on, and two have got magnitudes on. One that's a longer rod, my extremity, but they're in our cheaper reel ranges, but they're what I choose to use because they're just so good.
I just want to ask you something, Jake, while you're on. Is that your curtains behind you?
I'm going to mention it because I saw Joe did a live yesterday, and he had his big one behind him, and I thought, you know what, tomorrow I'm going to get mine out.
It does look like a pair of curtains, actually, because it's got like a little like
crease
over
in
it
it
as well.
Yeah,
I reckon you should get some curtains made up. The consultant.
Ian's office. We've just moved to the one next door. I'll get Ian to get him up in his office.
Yeah.
Right, we're gonna have one last question to finish on because I think Zoe's Wi-Fi hotspot is just about holding out for you.
The battery's going down rapidly.
Yeah. So to finish off, we're just gonna go for. So someone's asked, what is your favourite species of fish and your favourite venue?
My favourite species of fish has to be a ginormous roach, like proper, like 8 ounce plus roach, like 12 ounces in it, 12 ounce to a pound roach.
Yeah.
There ain't nothing better. I mean, some of the roach I caught on the Y yesterday, you just like you get them out.
You're looking, just staring at it. Yeah.
Absolutely stunning. You know, especially when the water's clear, they show all their orange fins. I mean, there's just something about it, and the way they fight as well. Clonky. I've been to some venues over the years, and you will come and you think, oh, what that is they got their own little fighting pattern.
Yeah, you know when it's a good roach, don't you?
Yeah, it's like yesterday you catch a dace, catch a little chub, then you catch a roach. It's just like, it's just like you think, oh yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it has to be the roach. And what was the other part of that question,
your
Jake?
favourite venue?
I I haven't really got a favourite venue. Anywhere where I can go and just catch a mixed bag of fish, like quality fish.
Yeah.
I hate these. I hate it. It drives me insane.
Yeah.
Like these snots, what I call snots. When I'm catching fish from like 4 ounces to 10 ounces, that to me, it don't get better. I mean, I obviously do lots and lots of different fishing, but I love that. Somewhere like Meadowlands, for instance. If you were going there catching like skimmers, roach.
Yeah.
Obviously, I do love me carp fishing as well. But during the winter time, it's awesome fishing. I would like urge anybody to go out and do like the silverfish fishing. There's a lot of that now, isn't there?
Yeah.
Lots of competitions.
Yeah, proper. That's what.
When you can use casters, worms, ground bait. Lighter elastics, 6 elastics, and things like that.
Yeah.
To me, I think that makes you an angler. It makes you learn so much as well.
Yeah.
There's a guy out here today on one of the lakes, and he's just plodding along. He's only just started pole. He's just bought a pole this morning, and I've gone out with him and set his roller up nice and all that, and got him to fish lighter elastics, and he's starting to catch some skimmers, and it makes it. It just, I don't know. There's something about it, like seeing the bites.
Yeah.
All that, because they're crafty, aren't they? The roads and the skimmers.
Yeah, there's a lot to say for winter fishing, I think, in like learning different things, and then you seem to, if you've had a good winter catching a few, like it seems to set you up for the year ahead, doesn't it?
It does set you up, yeah, it does. Like playing fish properly, like on lighter elastics, playing them, and I think, like I said to the guy this morning when he bought the pole, I said, look, just fish lighter elastics for the time being. You've just got into pole fishing, and actually you get the feel for it.
Yeah.
And I think next summer when he goes fishing, he'll be so in tuned to actually how he plays a fish, because he's fished lighter elastics during the winter.
Yeah. Yeah.
So give me a venue which is 6 foot deep, great big roach, odd skimmer, odd bream, big tench, few cruisins, and I'll put my ashes around that venue.
Yeah, sounds great.
So, yeah.
That's great. Right, we're going to leave it there because Des needs to give BT Internet a curl and have a big go at him.
I'm going to be on the events department in a minute.
And we're gonna finish there. I think over the cooler months, over winter and that, we'll be doing this a lot more regular, just because like sometimes the weather's crap and we don't really want to we can't get out filming if the weather's really bad. So we'll do this. No. I think we'll say every few weeks or something, or a couple of weeks or something like that.
Yeah.
And keep you all posted.
In a minute for some proper internet anyway. So
yeah. So if you've got any questions and we've not answered it, or I've missed it, or you've just you want to ask it next time, keep a lookout, because we'll be back doing these quite regular. So thank you very much for tuning in, and nice one, Des, for joining.
Thank you very much. Yeah, sorry about the little mistake. Well, whatever happened halfway through, but one of them, that's live. It is live, so I expect a bit of that.
This is it.
Thank you very much.
Nice one, guys.
All right, Jakes, I'll speak to you soon.